Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Sammy. We had the live reveal of the Last of the Druids. Grinding Gear Games did their little live reveal. It was about 40 minutes long. Gotta say, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably the shortest content reveal we've had from Grinding Gear Games. Typically, they're minimum an hour, sometimes 90 minutes. In this video, I'm going to give you the TLDR. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way right now. Obviously, huge disappointment that they had to punt the endgame fixes down the field. I believe it's going to happen in 05. I guess time will tell. Obviously, a huge disappointment. There's a lot of outcry going on right now. There's a lot of mad people, a lot of noise around that. I respect their decision. I understand why they did what they did, but we're going to get into that at the end of the video because I want to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive on that. Not too much of a deep dive, but I do want to give my opinion on that decision. And we're going to go over what we are going to expect, what to expect for 0.4. We are getting the Druid class. We got a little tinkering in the end game and a bunch of other stuff in between. Obviously, Grinding Gear Games did, it's obvious there is a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to the Last of the Druids, the fate of the Vaal League. They obviously did a lot of work. Where they directed that work is where I'm going to have an opinion on, but that is going to be at the end of the video. So let's get into the TLDR of the Last of the Druids, and then at the end, I'm going to go back to the elephant in the room and the decision to punt the end game and the fixes to the end game down the field. Let's get to it. Okay, so everybody was waiting for the Druid class, and in 0.4 on December 12th, we are going to get the Druid. I got to say, it looks very interesting. The Druid basically is a human form that is an elemental caster, and then there are 3 animal forms that the players can choose, and the 3 animal forms are in the form of a bear, a wolf, and a wyvern. And in order to change from human form to animal form, you're going to require the animal talisman, and you can choose which animal form you want to take with the talisman. Now, changing forms between human and animal is seamless and instant, and in typical GGG fashion, it looks awesome. Now, the Druid does come with 2 ascendancies. The Shaman ascendancy, which has natural elemental fury, and the second Druid ascendancy is the Oracle ascendancy, and this is where the Oracle has perfected the power of foresight. And if you choose the Oracle ascendancy, it'll give you a whacking 130 new passive skills on the tree. Unbelievable. It's going to be interesting to see which one of the ascendancies the player base is going to gravitate to. But I have to say, the Oracle being able to perfect the power of foresight, and that the fact that it gives you 130 new passive skills on the tree is unbelievable. There's also the introduction of a new unique talisman, and just a little breakdown with the animal forms. The bear looks like it's going to be slower, tankier, and slow attacks. The wolf is going to be a kind of in between, quicker and nimble with its attacks. All I got to say about the wyvern is fire breathing dragon. And I got to say, it looks very appealing. Now, the Druid comes with 21 new skills and 30 plus new supports. The Druid looks very interesting. I have to say, this is not a play style. That's not a play style that I tend to gravitate to, but it looks interesting, and we'll see just how it plays out in game. The Last of the Druids also is the introduction of the fate of the Vaal League, and there was a lot of discussion on what this was going to be. It's going to be a mash of synthesis and incursion from POE 1, kind of build your own dungeon, and the temple design looks cool. Looks really cool, I gotta say. I'm very impressed with the design of it. The UI looks amazing. It's obvious they spent a lot of time designing it, and it sounds like Jonathan personally did a lot of coding for the UI part of it. They got into that a little bit when Ziggy D during the Ziggy D Q&A. The core mechanic here is we need to find 5 of the arcane devices, the Vaal beacons, and once you have 5, you gain access to the Vaal ruins, which gives you access to the temple. That's the build your own dungeon UI kind of thing. It looks really interesting. Inside the temple, we're going to need to level up the rooms to pave the way for greater fights and rewards. So there is some strategy involved here. Now, apparently, there's some decaying of the puzzle or whatever you want to call it, the dungeon builder. I don't know what to call it. There is going to be some decaying, and then you're building it back up, and it doesn't fully reset. It just decays, like part of the pathing on the dungeon builder, for a lack of a better term, will get erased, and then you just need to build it up. And at the end of it is Atsiri, and you can fight her, and there's certain things that need to be done prior to getting to her. So really, really interesting strategy involved. But the beautiful thing about it is that we can kind of pave our own destiny and our paths, and it, depending on what we do and the paths that we select, it's going to provide us with greater fights and greater rewards. So it looks like it's something that they did mention this is end game viable. In other words, the loot has been set up where the rewards are going to match our ramping up of our characters even in late end game. So that was nice to hear. So it's something that obviously not only provides some engagement for the player base, but it also provides us another avenue for us to farm things for our characters, whether we're in mid or late end game. So that's very, very nice to hear. The Fate of the Vaal mechanic also provides us crafting abilities. So there's going to be we're going to be able to double corrupt items. We're going to be able to turn our characters into Robocops. There's a mechanic in the game where we can change one of our limbs of our characters into kind of like a Robocop, which gives us more power per se. The only one caveat about this, sorry for how I'm phrasing it, but Robocop is the first thing that came to mind. Terminator, however, kind of mechanic. It goes away if you die. So let's say you change one of your arms to like a mechanical arm, which gives you more power, etc., etc. You have that increased power through the Robocop Terminator mechanic on your arm, but as soon as you die, your arm goes back to your normal arm, as an example. So very interesting. We'll see how this stuff pans out. Some of the crafting mechanics do provide a fail option as well. So there are some 50% chance you either get the item, or there's a 50% chance that the item gets destroyed in some of these crafting mechanics that are introduced. So very interesting to see how the player base is going to take this with the 50-50 chance in some of these new crafting mechanics. So we'll see how that pans out. And there's also a new pinnacle boss fight, Atsiri, the Queen of the Vaal, sorry. So that is really good. We'll see. They gave us a little taste of the fight, but they didn't want to spoil it for us. But we'll see how that pans out. So that is the introduction of the Druid, the introduction of the new League mechanic. And then we got to the end game, and this is going to be short. I will save my monologue for the end, because I do want to talk a little bit about this decision. Unfortunately, the end game, they just, with the introduction of the Druid, which they admitted was basically 4 classes in one. And you're saying, how's it 4 classes? Well, they had to design the human form, and they had to design the 3 animal forms. And the fact that any class can equip the talisman, there's all this intertwining with the other classes, and then there's the animations from human to animal, and this caused them to a lot of work to create this class. That, along with the league mechanic and everything else that they wanted to catch up on, they have made the decision that they were not going to half-ass it and do a little change to the end game and then say, look, the major changes are coming in 0.5. They just said, you know what, we're going to punt this down the field and we're going to do the end game changes in 0.5 and not half-ass it. They do have a lot of things planned for the end game, and we're going to touch on that at the end. But that was a big disappointment for a lot, and a lot of people are going crazy right now about the end game. This 0.4, like I said, was promoted as the end game patch, and it didn't happen. They just sprinkled a little bit about little changes for the end game. But again, we'll talk about that at the end. So what are the changes that they did make to the end game? There's a couple changes to the tablets are now going to be less tedious to craft, and they've been buffed as well. So there's no more 20 steps to juice and set up the tablets. It's just simple currency to buff them, and it's juice and go. So that's good. It was tedious with the tablets. Now it's going to be less tedious, so that's a good thing. The delirium fog was finally fixed, and surprise, surprise, it was a simple bug the whole time that wasn't seen, but they caught it and now it's been fixed. But they admitted it was a simple bug that was there the whole time. It could have been alleviated much quicker, in my honest opinion, from how they were talking about it. But delirium fog has been fixed. Map density, this one is kind of going to be controversial. So we'll see how this one pans out. But map density, a lot of people were complaining that once they finished the campaign and entered the end game, they were getting constantly mobbed. And, it was providing a horrible experience, and the transition from campaign to end game was really bad. So in 0.3, what they did was they reduced the mob density in early maps. And as you were scaling up to the higher tier maps, so would the mob density. So by the time you got to tier 15, 16, and 17, it was back to normal. So kind of like a slow progression with the mobs. Well, apparently some people were still complaining about it. I don't know who was complaining, but there were still some people complaining about it, apparently. And so they have made a whole new system when it comes to map density with mobs. So monsters now scale in power, rewards and XP as you level instead of pack size. So basically what that means, TLDR, they have reduced the mob density overall in maps by 40%. 40%. And however, when it comes to the regular mobs, they have buffed their HP by 40%, but they also have buffed the XP and rewards by 40%. So less mobs, but more HP, more XP, and more rewards. Now, sounds great in theory, but the one thing that they didn't mention or talk about was the huge maps that we have in this game. So I'm a little bit fearful that we didn't get a reduction in, like what they should have said along with this, in my humble opinion, is there should have been a 40% reduction in map size as well. Because my biggest fear with this change is that there is going to be a lot of dead play. In other words, us killing a pack of mobs and then running or sprinting or walking for like 20, 30 seconds until we hit another mob pack. So that is my biggest fear. Now, another reason they mentioned that the reason why they did this was they didn't want some of the builds don't have a lot of AoE, so they can't deal with the pure magnitude of the mob density in mapping. So they didn't want to despair those classes. So now that they've reduced the mob density, they feel that whether or not you have a class that has a lot of AoE clear or not, you can feel confident in progressing through the mapping. So that's one of the reasons they gave. So I'm very curious to see how this pans out. As far as all the other things, I'm just going to run off all the other changes that were added. So Abyss is now gone core. Obviously, it's not going to be as dominant as it was in the Rise of the Abyssal League, but Abyss is going core. So if you want to farm it, if you want to experience it, there are avenues for do that. So it went core. There are 30 new support gems that have been added to the game. The introduction of new meta gems, which allows you to autocast any spell. There's 11 new unique items. There's been a ton of balancing to all ascendancies. And again, I direct you to the video description. There'll be the patch notes that goes into everything that has been changed. They've rebalanced 90 new skills. There's 250 new passive skills that have been added to the skill tree. One thing that I'm very happy that they covered and talked about was they have made more improvements to the PC and console performance. For those of you that don't know, game is still freezing and crashing and not running for some people. A lot of people are complaining about the performance, both on PC and console. And it looks like these improvements are going to be, it looks like, I don't know, about a 25-30% improvement in performance. So glad to see that they continue to focus on this item. It is a big sore point for a lot of the player base. Okay, so let's discuss the elephant in the room, the endgame not getting addressed in 04. But before I give you my opinion and my take, I do want to say one thing. I am very positive about Path of Exile 2. I always have, and I always will, until I see something that makes me change my opinion. I am 100% confident that Path of Exile 2 will be the best ARPG in the genre. Absolutely, hands down. I have full confidence in Grinding Gear Games, as does a lot of the people in the player base. Full confidence in Grinding Gear Games. This decision does not change my future outlook for Path of Exile 2. It's going to be the best ARPG, hands down, no question, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I wanted to get that out of the way before I go into this decision. Now, I got to say, I'm a little bit perplexed on the decision to not tackle the endgame in 0.4. Now, I do have to say, there is a lot of content in 04. I know a lot of people are focusing on the fact that no endgame update was done, but we have to tip our hat to GGG. 04 has a lot of meat on the bone. Let's not forget all the work that was entailed in creating the Druid class. Looks very complicated. The animation, the assets they had to create, how, it intertwining and being able to use it in other classes. They talked about how they had to do the voiceover for all the other classes as well. Like very, very detailed and complicated stuff. Also, the fate of the Vaal mechanic looks very detailed. Looks like there's a lot to do with it. And I think that's a sleeper. A lot of people, I think, are sleeping on this league mechanic. I think it's going to be fun. But we'll wait and see. So granted, a lot was done, a lot of work. This is not a matter of, my opinion, this is not on effort. Grinding Gear Games is constantly churning content, constantly evolving. Okay? It's not that. I just don't understand why you would choose. Okay? And I said this on my live stream. Okay? You've communicated prior to this live reveal. They communicated, we're going to give you the Druid class and it's going to be an endgame content. At some point, Grinding Gear Games realized we can't do both. Okay? This didn't happen last week. Okay? This obviously happened a month ago, month and a half ago. They came to the realization we can't get this endgame done. Right? And the Druid. So I just don't understand. I would have punted the Druid down the field, not the endgame. The endgame is the weakest link in this game. And it's where players drop off the fastest, in my humble opinion. This is where we go. Everyone wants the end game to be sharp, crisp. This is where you do your farming. This is where you test your builds. This is where you want to get currency. I can go on and on and on. This is where people thrive and strive to, is, can my character do 16 and a half, 17s? Can I do the meta farming? All this kind of stuff. This is where players like to engage for the majority of their time. Now, I get it. A lot of people like the campaign. I personally love the zero to hero, the journey of leveling up a character. I love that. I'm not a skip the campaign person. I want to start from zero and work my way up to mapping and endgame. But I just don't understand why they chose the Druid class over fixing the endgame. And this is the crux of my dilemma and why I'm disappointed in the decision. I would have fixed the endgame and then introduced the Druid class in 05. Now, we're splitting hairs here. I get it. But it's just, I'm disappointed, as are many, if I'm being completely honest. And that's my take. Now, again, that does not change my opinion on the game and the future of the game. This is going to be the top of ARPGs, and there's going to be other studios that are going to be trying to chase and become as good as Path of Exile 2. So that's my take. A little bit disappointed, but I'm still looking forward to 04. My fear, because the end game has not been addressed, and I've seen it already in the comments on my live stream, and I've seen it a little bit on social media, although when we do the live reveals, I try to stay away from Reddit and X because I don't want it to blur my opinion. But I already noticed during the live reveal a lot of people saying skip. See you when you get the end game fixed. So we're going to have that. And we're also going to have people that are going to, like myself, they're going to do 04. They're going to play it. And we're going to get the end game. And potentially we're going to drop off because the end game, just doesn't have any purpose. And they admit it. Mark and Jonathan spoke about it, how the infinite world really has no purpose. There is no attachment. There's nothing to do. And they talked about, like in POE 1, there's the map completion, the Atlas completion, right? So, and they have big plans for the end game. So that's exciting, super exciting. Mark admitted the Atlas tree sucks. I love how honest these guys are. And they have big plans. He said it's not going to look anything like it is today. And so maybe that's the reason why they have much bigger plans, and hence why they wanted to punt it down the field. But I have to say, and I said this on my live stream, they did a major 360 back in October prior to the release, the Path of Exile early access release, because they saw what happened to Diablo 4 and everybody complaining about how shit the end game was. And they course corrected. They delayed the release of early access. They said, they wanted to introduce the whole campaign on release and just do a little bit in the end game. Well, they changed that once they saw what happened at D4, and they focused on end game. So this is what they pitched prior to the game even coming out. Okay. And we're a year later and we're still waiting for the end game to be fixed. That's all I'm saying. It's a shocker. Now I understand they're still cooking. They're still building, I get it, but this is the weakest link in the game. It needs to be fixed. But it's going to get fixed. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and hopefully it'll be in 05. But I'm still optimistic. I'm still going to play. Obviously, I'm still going to play Path of Exile 2. It's my favorite game, as is Path of Exile. So we're going to be playing it. We're going to be banging out, and we're going to be giving you my thoughts once we get our hands on it. And hopefully I'm wrong. And the new league mechanic with all the new introductions, additions to the game, and the new class, hopefully that provides a lot of fun and entertainment for players for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll circle back, obviously, with my comments on once we get our hands on the game. And as always, we're going to call it. And if you can like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate your support of my channel. And as always, we'll hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.